Hey guys, it's Tuesday. Adam Trigger here to talk college basketball. First four, the NCAA tournament kicks off tonight, and we're going to go over both games. And if you're here wondering, what about the NIT? Check out my show On the Clock, which will be up on WagerTalk TV later this afternoon. I'll run through all 7 NIT games and get you ready for the NIT games as well. But it's first four, and the NCAA tournament, the 2025 NCAA tournament, tips off with none other than the St. Francis Red Flash as they get ready to take on Alabama State in the first four battle of 16 seeds. And I've watched a ton of St. Francis ball this year. I've got out there to see them play in person. I feel like I have a good beat on how this game is going to play out. I don't necessarily have a play, but I do think there's in-play opportunities. So I'm just going to kind of talk about this game before I sway you one way or the other. Now, from a matchup standpoint, I think this is about the worst matchup of the 16 seeds that St. Francis could have pulled. I thought they would have matched up better against Mount St. Mary or American, but they got Alabama State. And the reason I think this could be a tough matchup for them is Alabama State's guard play and their athleticism. So the one thing I've sort of noticed watching St. Francis and more specifically watching the NEC tournament run that they went on is that they've really sort of like accepted the fact that they weren't going to be more athletic than LIU, that they weren't going to be more athletic than Central Connecticut State. And what they did, the game plan in that CCSU game, which is a game that I was at, the NEC final, they basically gave them the three-point shot. They clogged up the lane, and they said, you know what, if you're going to beat us from the outside, we're just going to have to tip our cap because we know we're not going to be athletic enough to guard you one-on-one. We know if we sort of play your game, we're going to get beat at the rim and get torched. And what happened in that game was Central Connecticut State came out, was a big spot. They were at home, a little bit nervous, and they started missing outside shots. And suddenly St. Francis was in their heads. And when Central Connecticut State tried to get to the rim, they couldn't because St. Francis had the paint so clogged up. That could very well happen to Alabama State. This is not an elite shooting team. They do have good guards, which I'll talk about in a second, but shooting percentage-wise, Alabama State is not great, and none of their guards shoot over kind of like low 30s from three. So I think you're going to see a very similar game plan in that regard. Now, what St. Francis does well on the offensive end, they can be efficient. They space the floor incredibly well. They get good looks for the most part. In NEC play, they got good looks, 46.1% from the field this year. One of the more efficient teams from the NEC conference. And they're not horrible from three, 34%, 33.9% from three. So they can hit the outside shot. And it all comes from their floor spacing and ball movement. Now, the potential issue I see here is they will turn it over. And if they're up against an athletic team like Alabama State, I could almost see turnovers, starting to play. And I'll go back to this guard trio that Alabama State has of TJ Matlock and it's Hines, Knox, Matlock. They have three guards that are really, really good, that handle the ball extremely well, that don't turn it over at all. And if Alabama State can force turnovers, I could see them getting easy points that way. And suddenly St. Francis might find themselves down 10. And that would be a really less than ideal scenario for them. I don't know if we would see them come back similar to the way they did against LIU. And then remember that Central Connecticut State game, they were playing with a lead for most of that time. So at the current number, I made this 3.5. It's kind of where it opened. When it got up to 4.5, I started to get tempted with St. Francis, but I kind of said, you know what? This is not the best matchup for them. So I'll give you some in-game, I guess, what I would look for. If Alabama State comes out, starts taking threes, they're not falling, and it doesn't look like they're going to get great looks from three, that would be a sign to maybe look for St. Francis, as an in-play option if the number got there. If St. Francis comes out, they're turning the ball over left and right, they're probably going to get crushed here because at that point, the athleticism from Alabama State takes over, and then I think they dig themselves a hole that they can't get out of. The other thing, obviously, Alabama State, if they're going to make a couple 3-point shots, that this would get ugly because they would stretch that St. Francis defense, force them to come guard them out on the perimeter. And that's where I could see the guard trio of Knox, Matlock, Hines really, making a difference. So at 4.5, I had the slightest lean towards St. Francis, but this is not what I'm going to bet. And if you do, I hope you win because that's all I've got on that particular game. I guess I'm not even gonna commit to a side or a total. Just gave you the info I have there. If you do want something, I am committed to. I've already released 3 NCAA tournament best bets for Thursday and Friday. Those are up on my page now at WagerTalk. One of them is the $5 Tuesday play. So you can get one of those selections for just $5. Or you could get everything I'm going to play in any college basketball tournament from now to the end of the season for just $139. And that is up on my page as well. So 2 great specials. Check those out. Like I said, I've already locked 3 NCAA tournament plays in and 1 NIT play in for tomorrow. And all of those and everything else I'm going to play from now until Championship Monday are on my page for just $139. And check out $5 Tuesday for every handicapper on the site. All right, we are going to the main event tonight. The first 4 matchup between the North Carolina Tar Heels and the San Diego State Aztecs. And so, again, this is not one that I've played, and it's not one that I'm going to play, but I do have, I guess, more of a lean here that I'm willing to commit to. So I think this is a much better matchup for San Diego State. I didn't agree with the opening number, but now that this has been pushed up to like 4.5, it seems like 4.5 is where the market is on this one. I do think I'd have to lean San Diego State here. I am not I've kind of been outspoken about not being a big fan of this San Diego State team this season in the context of the Mountain West and sort of where they were rated coming into the year. But I will point out that Magoon Guath is back. They have their Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year, elite rim defender. They've been without him. He's back, which is absolutely huge for them. And San Diego State, one thing this team will do, they tend to get up for like these big games. I feel like this San Diego State team plays better on the big stage. In the big Mountain West games, go back to the tournament the last couple of years. They've done really well in the NCAA tournament the last couple of years. Go back to the non-conference. They have wins over Creighton in Houston in non-conference play this year. And then during Mountain West play, they knocked off New Mexico. They knocked off Colorado State. They knocked off Boise State. And if memory serves me correctly, they should have beat Utah State, or they at least had them on, I think it was a 1-point game. So they've played well against all the top teams in this league. Why North Carolina is probably going to struggle with them is North Carolina's what they want to do offensively, or what they try to do offensively, San Diego State should defend. And that's, I think, the most important thing to note about this San Diego State team is where they're lacking in terms of like relative to the past couple of years. Of course, 2 years ago in the national championship game, last year in the Sweet 16. I think they lack a little bit on the offensive end, but with Guath back, they don't lack on the defensive end. This is a top 20 defensive team, one of the best defensive teams in their conference, and a team that's really good at shutting down transition, which is what North Carolina wants to do. I mean, if North Carolina is getting their preferred game here, it's up and down, playing their tempo. North Carolina, top 30 tempo pace team in the country. They always look to get out on the break. San Diego State, very good at shutting that down. San Diego State plays one of the bottom 60 paces in the country. And so it comes down to who's going to win that pace battle. And my money is on San Diego State winning the game control battle, because Brian Dutcher is a far superior coach. That's where I think there's maybe the biggest mismatch here. Dutcher is just an elite coach. And I think his ability to game plan is better than Davis, better than North Carolina. And I think he'll have a game plan to slow down that North Carolina team, force them into making mistakes, where suddenly the 4.5 points becomes very valuable in a game of this magnitude. I think San Diego State needs Nick Boyd, Miles Byrd have to go off. Like, that's my one concern for San Diego State is outside of that duo, the offense can be very sketchy, and they're going to need those two to hit shots from the perimeter. But North Carolina doesn't defend the pick and roll very well, and that's often how those two get open. So maybe they get open looks here. And if, there's, again, go back to a couple of those bigger Mountain West games. I think the New Mexico game comes to mind, where one of those two sort of just has a day. San Diego State can beat just about anyone if that's going to be the case. So again, this is not something that I was overly confident in enough to put on my card. I still think North Carolina is a dangerous team, especially given the fact that, everyone has been talking for 2 days about not wanting them in. They shouldn't be in. Well, now they're here. That's dangerous. But from a numbers perspective and a matchup perspective, 4.5 with San Diego State feels like the right side in this game. There you go. Those are the first 4 games. Like I said, if you want NIT info for tonight, head on over to the WagerTalk YouTube channel and check out On the Clock. That should be up in a couple hours. I'm going to be covering all the NIT action for Tuesday. And one more time, $5 Tuesday at WagerTalk. All handicappers have a play up for $5. I've got a 4% NCAA tournament play. But really what you should do is grab that $139 package that gets you everything that I play from now through one shining moment on Championship Monday. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys back here in the morning for more NCAA tournament free picks.